Another baseless right-wing conspiracy. Why won't some people accept the election results? Get over it already. You may have heard some of these things lately and wonder how it can be that so many in this country believe that the election of 2020 was rigged. My name is Ali Shuaga and welcome to 10 Points to Ponder, where we like to talk about all the impolite topics you get canceled for: politics, Jesus, race, and manhood. Why do people think the election was rigged? Here's 10 Points to Ponder. Point number one, massive mail-in voting. The pandemic was used in many states to send out millions of unsolicited ballots to voters without any accountability that they were even sent to the people or verification that they were eligible. Particularly vulnerable were nursing homes, where the staff and social workers helped the residents in filling out their ballots. The only thing worse would be internet voting. Anyone who has ever tried to get a new release pair of Jordans or Yeezys would know systems can be rigged. Point two, an unwillingness to purge the voter rolls. As if the ballots weren't enough, many Democratic state legislatures fought any attempt to clear the voting list of people who died, moved, or were otherwise ineligible. Any attempt to do so was met with the obvious charge of racism and disenfranchisement of minorities. Why would they be so concerned about trying to ensure only eligible people vote? To some, it's obvious: fraud and power. Point three, credible past cases of voter fraud. Elections have been stolen before. Look at cases where legislators and congressmen were cheated while the rest of the world was locked down. The Dirty Deeds crew were in the cities preparing for November 3rd. Just like the alliance between Antifa and BLM, there have been months of strategizing and coordination to sow chaos, just waiting for the right moment. This election and the shady dealings have been years in the making. Heritage Foundation compiled a database of 1,302 verified recent cases of voter fraud, the vast majority involving, you guessed it, mail-in ballots. These ballots are nothing less than an invitation to fraud. For more information on this, go to heritage.org/voter fraud. Point four, corrupt electronic voting systems. Before Trump, when people cared about election integrity on both sides, Dominion voting systems and others were known for their ability to be hacked. In April 2018, the New York Times published a video of University of Michigan computer scientist J. Alex Halderman showing a group of students how easy it is to rig a Dominion voting machine. Now, any mention of election rigging is immediately marginalized as another right-wing conspiracy theory and somehow racist. These machines are so corrupt that Texas refused to use them. Interesting that these machines were installed in swing states that had the most problems counting votes. It appears the plan was to count them until Biden wins. Hillary Clinton said it herself. Point five, last-minute changes to voting rules and laws. Just like the arbitrary lockdowns, legislators in swing states used COVID as an excuse to grab power. They eliminated rules regarding voter identification and signature verification. In some states, certain counties would allow the curing or fixing of information on ballots after the election, while other counties would not. Interestingly enough, after the second debate, the term "Can I change my vote?" was trending on Google. The point of fact is that a lot of people voted before they found out that their jobs would be taken and they would be locked down the rest of their natural lives. Point six, Trump won Florida and Ohio, then everything stopped. Florida, with its huge population, easily confirmed the election results. Ohio, generally a bellwether swing state, went for Trump rather quickly. As soon as it appeared that Trump would win, Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, North Carolina, all of the counting stopped, presumably as a life-saving measure so people wouldn't harm themselves after a Trump win. The news media continued to delay calling any further states until Biden was in the lead. Some believe this was by design to give Biden's ascension an air of inevitability, so people would accept the results. Point 7, the hatred of the media. The media has hated Trump since before the election and has vilified our president at every turn for the last 4 years. The media would have been hard-pressed to call the election for Trump, even if evidence suggested it. Trump himself has said many times that the media is the enemy of the people. They went from Russia investigation to impeachment, hating Trump all the way. But this year has been the absolute worst. The media has no greater pleasure than marginalizing Trump and his supporters. I had to explain yesterday with family that people boarded up windows because of Biden supporters, not because of Trump voters. The fact that this needed explaining is one more example of the gaslighting, dishonest media. See how often a Google search for Trump is coupled with the words false, dubious, misleading, baseless. The media continues to function as the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. Point 8, the suppression of big tech. Twitter has flagged Trump's tweets throughout his presidency, stating that things are disputed simply because they disagree. No greater suppression was done, however, than the Hunter Biden story. The fact that you have a potential leader of the free world whose son was receiving money from foreign actors in exchange for potential influence and was suppressed as unverified prior to an election is disgraceful. And perhaps their policies, if they were balanced and consistent, we could let it go. But just 2 weeks prior to the Hunter Biden story, the president's tax returns were stolen and a news story was written about them, and there was no attempt to restrict the dissemination of that illegally obtained information. I finally figured out where they came up with all the accusations against Trump. You simply take every crooked thing that Barack Obama, Joe Biden, or Hillary Clinton actually did and blame it on Trump. Point 9. Biden got more votes than Obama? Now this is where the cheating falls apart. Even though I disagreed with Obama's policies, I could see why so many people loved him. Charismatic, great speaker, seemingly approachable, all of these things are not basement Joe Biden. This last year, the press has been working overtime to circle the wagons to keep his gaffes from blowing up the election. Remember when he said that the most sophisticated voter fraud system was his? Remember when he said, if you can't decide whether to vote for me or Trump, you ain't black? And then look at his vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris. This snowman has more charisma than her. All she does is rely on tired identity politics to dog whistle the unholy duo of racism and sexism. If you ask her a hard question, it's because you're sexist. If you don't like her policies, you're racist. Do you mean to tell me that this ticket got more votes than Obama? Even liberal black people don't believe it. They're just staying silent because they know that we all got bamboozled. 80 million votes? Point 10. The suspicious response of the office of the president-elect. I had a coworker whose car was stolen in broad daylight. It was missing for a few weeks, then another coworker's husband spotted the exact same car in broad daylight and it was recovered. This was quite a feat because the car was barely recognizable. You see, the thief had covered the car front and back with bumper stickers to fool people into thinking that it was his. The bumper stickers in this case is the office of the president-elect. The press conferences and announcements of policy decisions and cabinet members, all prior to actually taking office, all to give the air of inevitability. On election night, Biden got his injection and came out to meet his supporters, essentially for a photo op to show himself victorious. Biden is doing everything he can to fake his way to the White House. With all this said, we need real reform of our electoral system. I'm in favor of a constitutional amendment preserving the sanctity of elections so that whatever the outcome, we truly know it was the will of the people. The voting process should be limited to American citizens in person with an ID, with very severe limits on how absentee ballots are obtained and counted. What do you think? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This has been 10 Points to Ponder.